Welcome back to another episode of the Middle School Athletic Director Podcast. Sorry, it's been a little while since we put it out, a little over the 2 weeks, but I'd come down with something the past couple of days and couldn't talk. So couldn't really do a podcast. Was very grateful to some of the guests that we had lined up to reschedule some of these interviews. So we're back at it. And today we're talking about professional development for your coaches. Not only the X's and O's, but really diving into communication, talking about communication with them, how to lead a practice, how to lead a program, mental health, all of those things, and developing your coaches other than just the X and O's. So it's a great episode. You definitely don't want to miss. But before we dive in, cue the music.
There's a reason Neptune Game Time is the official custom music partner of the NIAAA and the NFHS. Backed by more than 2,500 partner schools across all 50 states. Featuring a growing library of more than 46,000 lyric-safe songs, every track, every message, carefully selected for a family-friendly, hype-filled professional game day experience. For the past 15 years, only one provider has set the standard. Only one music partner has changed the game. Neptune Game Time.
So we are here today with David Suter, who is the course chair for 723, which is providing standards-based professional development for coaches. David is a retired athletic director out of New Jersey. And so we look forward to this. As you know, if you've listened to this podcast for the past 4 seasons, I'm big on professional development in any way that we can get it, right? And so a lot of times we talk about professional development for the athletic director. We talk about professional development for the administrators, but we haven't really dove in too much about talking about professional development for your coaches. We have talked about it needs to be there. We need to do something, whether it's providing online training or them going to clinics in person and things like that. So David's here. He's going to kind of help us kick off our kind of a new season with the LTCs and just kind of touch base on what 723 is, but ultimately why it's important to have professional development for coaches. So David, thank you for jumping on with us.
Oh, absolutely, Tom. Glad to be here, and kind of excited to talk a little bit about the new and improved LTC 723. Myself and the members of our team completed a rewrite of the course over the summer. So I was glad to see you had our new title out there because we revamped quite a bit of the program. And really started focusing on using the national coaching standards as the catalyst for developing coach education programs for our coaches. Tom, as you mentioned before, PD is a lifeline in terms of being successful, of being whether it's as an athletic director or as a coach at whatever level you're working in interscholastic athletics, we have to constantly be working towards getting better at what we do. And the whole thrust of LTC 723 is just providing primarily athletic administrators with a framework that they can use to develop programs. We're not recommending a program necessarily. This is a cookie cutter way to follow and provide professional development. We're just providing a lot of resources and providing those resources with a lens of using the national coaching standards as the way to make really good decisions regarding professional development choices and offerings, because they're going to vary from state to state in terms of the needs. They're going to vary from school to school in terms of the needs as well.
Yeah, and I mean, as we all know, especially at the middle school level, coaches go in and out. Whether it's a parent sometimes, or it's a coach that's just getting started and does a very good job, and then the high school pulls them up, and hopefully they continue right the growth of that coach that the middle school did. But kind of put you on the spot. Out of 723, you said it was you kind of used the national standards, and you're giving suggestions on how, sorry, on how to um, provide these different professional developments. Kind of what would be your top three kind of things out of that class uh, to kind of talk about today, and to give our middle school ADs something to kind of think on as they're moving forward through the year, and obviously maybe hopefully take 723 down in Tampa.
Yeah, well, probably um, for novice or for newer coaches as well, but also for um, even seasoned coaches, coaches that are coming back into one of the biggest areas that we always have to focus on is student health and safety. And so one of the chapters in our book are simply looking at different providers for health and safety, um, professional development. We look at the national NFHS Learn core courses. We certainly touch on the human kinetics availabilities as well. But even outside of those two major providers, a lot of different states have opportunities for coaches to take courses that really help them develop um, sound policies related to student health and wellness. It's got to be our primary thing. One of the newer areas um, of NIAAA focus, and also within some of our states, is the big push towards mental health and mental wellness as well. So we touch on that and provide a couple opportunities for coaches to take a look at that. And basically, because if you look through the national standards, you're going to see proficiencies related to dealing with student health and also with student mental wellness as well. Probably number two is going to be an emphasis on a lot of the interpersonal skills that are necessary. We bring coaches in, as you indicated, a coach, especially at the middle school level, could be a parent, it could be a community member. Not necessarily are we getting coaches out of the teaching ranks. So consequently, we need to work on some very basic skills like communication skills, how to get in touch with parents, how to communicate the things that are important to your program. So there's an emphasis on that, again, based on the national standards. And then probably the third thing that 723 is going to look at in terms of importance is we spend a whole section of our presentation looking at the NFHS Learn program. There are just so many opportunities on there to get on your computer PD, half hour, 45 minutes at a time. It's not like it's an investment in leadership training class where when you come to hang out with us, you're going to hang out with us for 4 hours. It's almost heard a phrase last week when we were at the PD summit. Sometimes those classes are like trying to drink from a fire hose. You just get so much information. And so we spend a lot of time looking also at the NFHS Learn platform in ways to use that, not only for professional development for coaches. There's a great PD segment there that's available for our parents, and an excellent student portion as well. So, we talk about that as being a potential one-stop shop for at least developing the basis of a professional development program.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was kind of bring that up even with your first point with the NFHS. A lot of those courses are free. To use the user, depending on your state. Some of the states if you put your state in, the course is free or it's 10, 20, $30. So again, if you have a handful of coaches, I think like you said, NFHS Learn is a great platform. If you can't uh, send them to a clinic or a conference or things like that where they can actually sit down in front of people, can you spend, $30 to $50 on each coach, or maybe if it's even just each head coach, and kind of have them all, they can come in and to your classroom, or you can give them the code. They could do it at their house. And then you could easily do some type of, I'm big on Google, so you can do some type of Google form for them to kind of use to talk about what they learned from it. There's definitely different ways to do it if you don't have the opportunity to send them in person to something. Okay, I know in South Carolina we always have a big coaches uh, clinic towards the end of the month that does a great job incorporating middle and high school. And they bring in a lot of college coaches and things like that, so they're able to get a lot of scheme things. It does a good job with professional development in their sport and their skill. But I'm glad you kind of touched on the professional development on communication. Um, right, that is huge again, especially with a parent or a community member and things like that come in and maybe doesn't know all of the quote unquote red tape of a school district, right? What you can and cannot do. And if you bring in one of those adjunct coaches and you basically just say, here's your team, here's your group of 12, 13, 14-year-old girls and boys, and that's it, right? You're probably going to be sitting in the principal's office or the admin's office a couple weeks down the road with something that happened. Not to say that the coach did anything intentionally bad, but again, if you don't tell them, don't text the kids, or if you tell them, uh, if make them run if they miss a practice because their parent came and picked them up, right? I mean, those are all stuff we got to talk about in the parent meetings and tell parents not to do that. But again, if the parent comes and picks them up and they make the kid run a lot after, the next day at practice, right? That's not good. So, I think that was a great point to kind of pull up or to bring up about, making sure we have those preseason coaches meetings. They're going to always use them as a professional development. Not only to this is what we do here at the school, or this is the guidelines from the district, but I always tried to bring in some type of professional development, whether it was a book study, whether it was us sitting in front of a screen, like you said, and watching NFH Learn, whether it was bringing the principal in and saying, hey, here's 15, 20 minutes, tell them what they need to know type deal. And yes, a lot of times it might be just guidelines, but I mean, that's still technically professional development, right? So, I think all of those are great.
Yeah. One of the big things that was part of the early development of LTC 723, and that was before my involvement. I was not involved in the initial development of this course. Um, that was a couple of legendary um, national athletic directors, including the late Bruce Brown from Ohio, in terms of putting this course together. Um, for those folks who are listening here that are athletic administrators, if you think back to that lowly 504 leadership training course we took, and they went through the responsibilities of an athletic administrator. One of those is the requirement to select and train qualified coaches, because ultimately that coach sitting in the principal's office, as you were just talking about, Tom, is ultimately the responsibility for whatever happened there is going to work its way up the chain. So as athletic administrators, it's really, really important that we are very consistent and very, very intentional And that's one of the words that will pop up in 723 many times, is the idea of intentionality. But you have to be able to be intentional in providing programs, and ultimately, in God forbid there be litigation involved, you need to be able to demonstrate as an athletic administrator how you met that responsibility, and as a coach, that you were given the opportunity and took advantage of the opportunities to learn in those areas. We did not spend any time in LTC 23 talking about the development of coaches' tactical or technical development. Um, Not that they are not important; they are very, very important. All sports are evolving constantly. We spend, the time in LTC 723 looking at those administrative responsibilities, looking at some of the philosophical areas that are necessary to have a good education base program. The AAU coach, the town ball coach, the select coach, those folks all have the technical and tactical knowledge of their sport. What most of those folks are lacking is the idea of being able to pull those technical and tactical skills into a program that is designed intentionally, as education-based athletics are, on providing our young people with a rounded sports experience, an experience that helps them develop not only physically and technically, but also helps them develop as good role models, as good citizens, and also as, we talk about in schools, especially good students. The focus of LTC 723 is going to be bringing out and exposing those folks that take the class to those type of experiences that are available. And Tom, as you mentioned, professional development doesn't mean either sitting in front of a screen or sitting in a classroom. Professional development can be a good book study. Professional development can be sending out a link to a good podcast
Mm-hmm.
and saying, take a listen to this, and then follow back up. That's one of the key things that you'll see as we discuss things in LTC 723 is you can't just throw out the opportunity. You have to follow it up as well. So
Yeah, so the last kind of book study I did was that one word book. I forgot who. I'm not a big book, author person. I forgot who wrote it, but it's a great book on the one word that you're supposed to live by for the year. And so I, introduced that book at a professional or a preseason kind of coaches meeting at the very beginning of the school year, and told them all to read it and pick a word. And so they all picked a word, that meant for them. And I think my word that year was better. I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be better every day. Not saying that I didn't do a good job the year before, but there was obviously things like you said, we could always grow on. Right. And so, part of my like monthly check-in with each coach, kind of at the end of it was, what have you done this month to achieve your goal, right? Your word. What have you done? And again, that kind of goes along with the book study, and we didn't have to meet all the time, and we weren't reading chapters all together and all that stuff. It was just, hey, here's the book, read it real quick because it's a very short book. Come up with your word, and then how are we going to meet that as we go through the year? And a couple of coaches that were really took it to heart, and they got humbled, and were like, man, I'll be honest, I haven't, let's say mine was better. I haven't been better this month, right? I really haven't put a lot of effort in to planning for the upcoming season. I've been swamped with things and other things in the life, and so it got them really trying to think about it, and it also got me as an administrator to know them more personally, right? And I think that kind of helps with some of the professional development, right? And because now I know the coach personally a little bit more, and I can help give that coach development, right? Whether it's more he needs help with communication, or they need help with practice planning, or they need help with how to run, a parent meeting or organize pregame meals, or all those things that go along with coaching. Like you said, that a lot of people just don't, they just think it happens, right? They show up and like, hey, you know, what are we doing for dinner tonight? The game's not till 5:30, but it's a 2-hour bus drive. And you're like, well, coach, you were supposed to do something. You were supposed to organize that. And they're like, well, I didn't know, so, there's a lot of different, professional development, if you want to say, other than just what we think about sometimes, which is just sit and get, a lot of information. So if, obviously we're in the middle of the fall seasons, or we're just getting started, depending on the state you're in. But kind of as we listen to this episode, moving into the winter sports. A lot of coaches and states will start kind of their preseason in October, and then officially start in November. So as we're kind of moving into those winter sports with those winter coaches, and even the spring, getting them ready, kind of what would you say, besides communication, besides mental health that we've kind of talked about, kind of what would you say would be the biggest professional development topics that we would really need to hit with those coaches? Again, I would just pick your top one or two. If we haven't already talked about it, if we have, you can elaborate, or pick another one. But if a coach is like, hey, all right, I need one or two to talk about other than the mental or communication, kind of what do you think those big ones would be?
Well, and I'm going to kind of jump back a little bit to a point you made, and it'll tie into the question that you asked, is professional development, while being intentional. Also, we have to be looking at it as an individual effort as well. Basically, your new coaches need professional development that your senior coaches don't need. Okay, the struggling coach is going to need support in areas very specific to what they need. And I think what happens a lot of times our veteran coaches kind of get the short end of the stick, the old fuzzy end of the lollipop, as it were, in terms of professional development geared for them. So outside of an athletic administrator providing, the nuts and bolts of what you have. Okay, here's your schedule, here's what you have to do, here's what eligibility looks like, here's the process for doing your transfer, all those kind of administrative details, which unfortunately are part of the job. Because a lot of times those little details are what comes up and bites you in the butt. But then in terms of, what am I going to do for my coaches? I would say primarily, you need to look at the staff. If it's a newer coach, then you may be focusing on those just really fundamental ways of team building. For the struggling coach, you have the opportunity now to identify exactly what it is what that coach's deficiency looks like. And, we give you the availability of some resources where you can start to pinpoint those needs. And then with your senior coaches, with those who've been with you for a while, you want to feel them. We want them to have the feeling of being empowered as well. So, I don't know that there's necessarily a cookie cutter way to say, this is the professional development I'm going to do for my winter coaches. Obviously, you're going to have your meeting with your coaches. You're going to have your parents' meetings dealing with all of those, administrative issues that need to be dealt with. But in terms of providing actual professional development, I think it almost becomes an example of your ability as an athletic leader to demonstrate your knowledge of your staff. You talked about, with the book, you were able to learn about your staff individually a little bit better by you providing your staff with professional development opportunities that are not necessarily tailored to them individually, but at least tailored to them where they are in their coaching career. Um, I think you're doing, you're doing service to each of those. So, if we're gonna, we started out before with the letter I being intentionality. We're going to throw another I in there. That your professional development program needs to be as individualized as you can make it. I mean, we're all busy people. So you don't maybe necessarily have the ability to sit down and write out an individual professional development plan. But by looking at your coaches, again, those struggling coaches, they needed something very, very individualized. Other than that, your coach that's been there for 5, 6, 8, 10 years really probably doesn't need to sit through something on, basic communication skills.
Yeah.
So I think probably the best thing for, seasonally is going to be, again, intentionality, but then individualization as well.
Yeah, and then kind of as we wrap up, the throw out there also those practice walkthroughs, even if it's preseason. As an athletic director, I walk through those preseason practices, and just kind of give again I do everything in a Google form right there on my phone, and send it to the coach and just kind of give feedback. Right, again, that's professional development as well. And again, I don't know if y'all touched kind of on how to do that. But one of the best things that was ever told me as a young coach, I was mainly soccer, and the glare from the sun always bothered my eyes, so I always got sunglasses on. And my AD did a kind of a practice walkthrough, and afterwards they were like, "Coach, practice was great, a lot of instruction, a lot of this, that, and the other." He said, "But I felt like your girls, they were lacking a little bit of focus when you brought them into the huddle to talk about it and things." And I'm like, "Well, why so?" He's like, "Because you didn't take your sunglasses off." And they couldn't see you eye to eye. They couldn't see it, who you were looking at, what you were looking at. You could have been looking down at the floor, but you lost a lot of their, locked in attention because they couldn't see you, right? You were hiding behind your shades. So then, I made a point every time if I brought the team in, I would just slide them up on top of the head, talk to them real quick, then pull them back down. And again, it made a world of a difference just because, again, I never noticed that was an issue. But my AD at the time noticed just something simple like that, and it made a huge difference. So doing those kind of walkthroughs can kind of help you, like you said, learn those coaches and learn kind of what they need moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. And that immediate feedback is something that just helps them become better in the moment. One of the things that we try to as course developers and course chairs is we try to make sure that we don't throw so much information in that it becomes totally overwhelming.
Yeah.
Tom, as you mentioned, we do have that LTC 707, which athletic administrators can take, which deals with assessment of programs and personnel. And as they talk about that, and we look at assessment, it's going to tie into these coaching standards again as well, because not only if we're going to assess them and use that as ways of helping our coaches get better, then we look at the 723 aspect of, okay, so how do I, what are the resources that are there? How do I find things that are going to supplement my coach's growth, and ultimately work towards the improvement not only of their individual team, but of my athletic department and program as well.
Yeah. So this is all again. I'm about professional development. I could talk about professional development for 2 hours. But I think we touched on some great things. And again, 723 is going to be offered in Tampa, just as like every other course, right? Do you know when it's offered this year?
Let me jump on my trusty calendar here. If you can give me a second, I will absolutely.
Yeah. So while you look that up, if you're able to go to your state conferences as well, they rotate through LTCs and things like that. So again, if you see 723, if you're not able to get down to Tampa, then make sure you definitely check it out your state. But in Tampa, we'll definitely be there, and it'll be on the date that
we're getting there. We're getting there.
David finds here in a second. So kind of again, as he's looking at that, as we wrap up, please just do something to develop your coaches. Like I said, those newer ones, the veteran ones, they're going to need different type of professional developments or development, right? That first year coach, that second year coach may need a lot more attention. But what can you do to those veteran coaches that have been around for a while? Maybe they were at the high school for years and they've come down to the middle school for maybe a little not as demanding of a schedule, but they still want to coach and they're a phenomenal coach. What can you do to help them? They're going to have the X's and O's, right? But what can we do to those veteran coaches to help build them as well, right? Is it a book study? Is it a NFHS class? Is it something, can you find something for that coach as well? So again, we just don't hold them to the side. So I think David's ready for the big announcement on.
Yeah, I got that. I'm going to follow up real quick on your point is that, especially athletic administrators who are dealing with middle school coaches, that kind of stuff, you really do need to take LTC 700 and 701. It's middle school is such a different animal. It's like, oh, well, it's just soccer with younger kids. Well, those younger kids come with a whole lot of different needs. And so, I'm going to throw a shout out there to, take 700 and 701 whenever you get a chance. And for those of your folks who are listening here who are very party members, if you can get up bright and early on Tuesday, December the 16th, LTC 723 will be offered at 7:30 in the morning.
That's right. You got the JV slot just like I do. So I'll be teaching 6:13, 7:30 in the morning. So
grab an extra cup of coffee.
That's right. So
and we'll see you on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, get up and come see us. And like I said, that's kind of a good. They moved some stuff around this year in the national. So having an LTC that kind of on that Tuesday morning is a good kind of almost a conclusion to the conference. There's a couple of things afterwards, but really the biggest thing on that Tuesday is that those LTCs. So stick around for another day, take an LCC, and then you can go explore Tampa afterwards. So, but David, I appreciate you jumping on with us. And I know, like I said, the weather's getting nice, and so it's a little bit of golf time. So go hit the links and hopefully you swing them well.
Very good. Appreciate that, Tom. It was good talking to you, and I'll see you in Tampa.
All right. See y'all.
Are you an AD struggling to keep up with the social media needs of your teams? Check out Box Out Sports, a platform used by colleges and high schools all across the country. It's a true plug-and-play system where in less than 30 seconds you have access to over 1,000 templates that include your colors, your logos, and your information to highlight your student athletes. If you're interested in learning more, go to boxoutsports.com today.
There's a reason Neptune Game Time is the official custom music partner of the NIAAA and the NFHS. Backed by more than 2,500 partner schools across all 50 states. Featuring a growing library of more than 46,000 lyric-safe songs, every track, every message, carefully selected for a family-friendly, hype-filled professional game day experience. For the past 15 years, only one provider has set the standard. Only one music partner has changed the game. Neptune Game Time.